You might think self-defense is all physical, right? Speed, precision, maybe a weapon. But today we're diving into a world where, well, words can be weapons too. And tactical training. It's as much about your mind as your muscle. This deep dive pulls the key insights from Sean Armstrong's tactical training with firearms. It's really designed to go way beyond just basic shooting. We're talking advanced concepts, tactical employment, actually winning a gunfight. Our mission today. Cut through the noise. We want to pull out those critical insights, maybe some surprising facts, and definitely practical takeaways, things that'll elevate your understanding of self-protection. So whether you're a pro in a high-stakes field or maybe just really curious about handling extreme situations, this deep dive is for you. Okay, so let's unpack this from the start. The book makes it super clear right away. This isn't for, basic shooters. No, it focuses on tactical employment, training ideas, and winning the gunfight. More advanced stuff. It really stresses that you should already have the training to actually hit a target reliably, and there are these vital disclaimers right up front. Things like, these techniques are illustrative only, they're inherently dangerous, and you absolutely should not try them without qualified instruction. Strictly for self-defense training.
That's such a crucial point they make immediately. It really underscores the seriousness, doesn't it?
Mm.
This isn't just about, oh, here's what you do. It's about understanding the huge responsibility, the risks involved. It's a clear signal that, look, real tactical skill comes after you've mastered the fundamentals. These concepts demand, well, a prepared and disciplined mindset.
Yeah, exactly. And building on that seriousness, the book talks about CARS, that's commonly accepted rules of safety. A few really jump out, like guns are always loaded and never rely on the safety of a gun. Also, keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to fire, and critically, never point your gun at anything you don't intend to destroy. And to really hammer home that safe muzzle awareness, they suggest this exercise, the laser drill. Use a dummy gun, or like even just your finger. Pretend a laser shoots out the end. And your job is to move around without that imaginary laser sweeping or crossing anything living. It sounds simple, but it's effective.
It really is. It programs that habit right into your muscle memory.
And speaking of awareness, there's Cooper's color code system. White for unaware, yellow for aware and monitoring. Then red, preparing for combat, and black, actively in combat.
What's powerful there, I think, is how these aren't just rules. They're like foundational pillars. They
Indeed.
build this mindset of constant vigilance and, frankly, respect for the weapon. The laser drill you mentioned, brilliant example. Seems kind of fun, but it hardwires critical habits. Safety becomes instinct. And it makes you wonder, doesn't it? How often are we really operating in yellow or red day to day? What could that heightened awareness actually mean for personal safety?
Okay, now here's where things get really interesting. A completely different angle on self-defense. The source makes this bold claim. It says, if you are more than 1 year old, you are a professional negotiator.
Huh. Yeah, that definitely challenges the usual idea of negotiation, doesn't it? Like, it's not just formal boardroom stuff.
Right, so what's the thinking behind that? How can everyone be a negotiator?
Well, the author's point is that life itself constantly trains you. Every single social interaction, going shopping, talking to your kids, even, getting pulled over by a cop, it's all honing those skills. It's about showing up with an open mind, having your facts, understanding the other side, confidence. Apparently, it even reduces anxiety for everyone involved. And the core idea is reaching what they call the point of indifference.
Point of indifference. Okay, what's that?
It's that balance where nobody really wins or loses. But in self-defense, it means making the bad guy decide that engaging with you is just not worth it. They'd rather have no deal. And this applies directly to what the book calls verbal self-defense.
Right, okay. And the book mentions specific verbal tactics here. Things like yelling specific phrases.
Yeah, things like short, loud sentences designed to cut through the aggressor's adrenaline fog, or yelling something like, "Get out of here, I'm armed."
It even mentions yelling, "I'm a cop," suggesting it might play well to a jury later, even if you aren't one. That's provocative.
It is provocative. The source frames it in terms of psychological impact. On the attacker, and maybe later in court, it's about establishing immediate perceived authority, or a high threat level. The goal, according to the book, is always de-escalation without physical violence, making the aggressor back off, which, counterintuitively might be the more humane route compared to things getting physical. But the key takeaway is you need to set your mental trigger, your readiness, before anything happens.
Okay, so moving from negotiation to something more direct. Verbal force techniques, VFT. We usually think self-defense is physical, but this source, it frames VFT as a cornerstone for diffusing deadly force situations. It comes from executive protection training. And there's this big legal difference highlighted, right? Police officers often have legal justification to use lethal force in situations where bodyguards, well, they don't have a badge. So bodyguards have to rely more on aggressive verbal force, maybe restraint, other non-lethal stuff.
Exactly. And those commands, those really stern, aggressive verbal commands, they're designed to focus the adrenaline response on both sides. But the book points out they're often misunderstood later. In a quiet courtroom, people might hear them as threats.
Even though the purpose was actually to save lives, both the principals and maybe even the aggressors.
Precisely. It's designed to save lives. That's a direct quote. This whole section, it really challenges our assumptions about what force even means.
He really does.
I mean, the idea that loud, even foul language could be more humane than lethal force. It's counterintuitive, but potentially life-saving. The source even touches on historical context, like past use of certain slurs, totally inappropriate now, obviously, but effective back then, or how UK police, using fewer guns, maybe see more reports of verbal police brutality, which could just be misunderstood VFT.
Wow.
And it even places this really provocative question. Is it almost easier sometimes to just shoot a suspect today? Because of the potential fallout from a live attacker lawsuits, suspension versus getting a justified shooting label.
Yeah.
That's a heavy thought.
It highlights the incredibly complex trade-offs for people whose job it is to protect others.
So how do you actually do this verbal force? The book has a framework, right? TCSC?
Yes, PCSC. It stands for tall, command, shock, and consequences.
Okay, break that down for us. What's tall?
Tall is about looming large, literally making yourself look bigger, raising your arms high, waving them, maybe threatening with whatever's in your hand, a briefcase, phone, even a coat. It's about establishing what the book calls primal dominance.
Okay, then C for command.
That's a simultaneous brief command, like 1 to 4 words. Stop, freeze, halt. The book actually emphasizes using profanity here for shock value. And your tone, your volume are just as important as the words, maybe even more so if there's a language barrier. It's aimed at hitting an older part of the brain, getting an immediate dominance effect.
Right, and S is for shocking.
That's amplifying the effect. The profanity, this sort of overstated force in your voice and body language, it reinforces the looming large, the dominance, again, targeting those older brain structures. And the final C, consequences. This sounds serious.
It is. This is the critical or else part. And it has to involve an element of death, dying, bodily injury, or terrifying image. Now, that sounds incredibly harsh, I know. But the source argues it's actually counterintuitively humane, restrained, reasonable, and appropriate. Why? Because it might save both your life and the assailant's by stopping the confrontation right there. In its simplest form, the or else is basically, you're going to die.
Wow, okay, that's intense. The book gives an example, right? The pipe scenario.
Yeah, the non-lethal scenario. Assailant walks at officer or bodyguard with a pipe. The sequence would be arms high, loud command phase. Stop now, fucker.
Yeah.
Put the pipe down now, followed by the consequences phase. Put it down now or you'll die right here.
It creates a very clear picture. There's even that amusing anecdote about the hiker and the bear.
Right, yelling expletives, waving arms, and the bear apparently slows down. The point isn't the specific words the bear understood, obviously. It's the emotion, the volume, the looming large posture.
So this framework, it's really a practical method, isn't it, to confront aggression without immediately going physical?
Exactly. It taps into those primal psychological responses.
Yeah.
That freeze effect you can get with extreme verbal intervention buys you precious seconds. It's about consciously creating that pause, that hesitation, even in someone who might be high or so adrenalized, they wouldn't otherwise hear you. It's a deliberate, life-saving strategy.
The deep dive also mentions these 3 important truths of bodyguard work that frankly seem to apply to anyone. 1, it's hours of boredom punctuated by moments of terror. 2, your eyes and brains are your primary weapons, not your gun. Makes sense. And 3, extremely aggressive, commanding, shocking, loud verbal force can be incredibly effective at slowing, freezing, or stopping aggression. That ties right back in.
Absolutely. And the source talks about how combining VFT with, say, drawing your weapon gives you those critical seconds to potentially fire first if you absolutely have to, or maybe even better, seconds for the other person to comply so you don't have to fire. It creates that pause.
And what about principal education? Why is that so important?
Yes. That's about making sure the person you're protecting, the principal, and maybe their family, even their press team, understand these techniques before something happens. They need to know why you might suddenly start shouting aggressively, or using other non-lethal methods that might look harsh out of context. It's all part of that negotiation continuum aimed at de-escalation, saving lives.
It also touches on the gun banners versus pro-education point.
Right. The book's stance is clear. Just because you carry a gun doesn't mean you should default to using it. VFT, calmer negotiation. These are often better tools. As they say, we're not anti-gun, we're pro-education.
Yeah, this whole section, it really flips the script on protection. It's about avoiding deadly force, diffusing things. Strength isn't just physical. Calculated, aggressive words can be more effective, more humane sometimes, especially if you don't have police authority.
Definitely a paradigm shift.
Okay, let's pivot. What actually happens inside you during one of these high-stress moments? The book calls it bio, basically, how your body functions or, does what it does under extreme combat dress. We all know about fight or flight, right? Heart rate spikes, blood pressure up, breathing faster, you're supercharged. But then there are the sensory and cognitive effects. Adrenaline hits and bam, hearing can shut down, auditory exclusion. The book even points to the sound design in Saving Private Ryan as an example.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and higher logic shuts down. Vision narrows, tunnel vision. Fine motor skills, forget about it. They deteriorate badly. Hands, arms, legs might tremble.
And what about time perception? That's always fascinated me.
Right. The book talks about distorted time perception. Things might seem to happen in slow motion or maybe way faster than reality. You might even get this feeling of like precognition, seeing it coming.
So understanding all that, it's not just academic, is it? It's practical preparation. Knowing, for instance, that your fine motor skills are going to tank, that completely changes how you should practice, say, drawing your weapon.
How so?
Well, you'd focus more on gross motor skills, bigger movements, rather than tiny, precise ones that you just won't be able to pull off under that kind of stress. It really highlights how incredible, but also sometimes counterproductive, our body's survival mechanisms can be.
Okay, let's talk about incapacitation, because Hollywood gets this wrong all the time, right? It's not always instant collapse. The source breaks down 5 ways a bullet might be effective, but it really highlights blood loss and central nervous system disruption. So blood loss is primary, but it's described as a very gradual process. You need to lose at least 20% of your blood, about a quart, for someone to be incapacitated, 50% for death. And then there's this chilling detail.
The 10 to 15 seconds.
Exactly. Even with the heart totally destroyed, an assailant can remain functional for a full and complete voluntary action for 10 to 15 seconds. Because of oxygen already in the brain. They reference grimly guillotine victims from the French Revolution as historical proof.
And the implications of that 10-15 second window for self-defense are profound.
Absolutely. What does that mean in practice?
It means you absolutely cannot assume someone is no longer a threat just because they've been shot, even seemingly catastrophically. It directly informs the training principle. Keep shooting as long as the assailant poses a threat. It completely shatters that movie myth of the instant drop.
The book also talks about ideal bullet penetration 10 to 12 inches in soft tissue for self-defense. But things like shielding arms or weird angles can mean you need more.
Right. An instantaneous collapse. That only happens with a direct central nervous system hit, brain or cervical spinal cord. But the book stresses how incredibly difficult those targets are. They're small, they move fast, and the skull is tough.
So relying on a CNS hit is unrealistic.
Highly unreliable. The book mentions psychological factors too, like someone collapsing just from the shock, oh my God, I've been shot.
Right.
Or maybe neural shock. But it stresses these are erratic, unpredictable, and unreliable. Especially with highly motivated attackers or people on drugs or alcohol. You simply cannot count on it.
Okay, so your body's doing all this wild stuff under stress. Incapacitation isn't instant. How do you actually fight back effectively? The book hammers home the power of mental preparedness.
This is key, because your mind can overcome some of the body's unhelpful reactions.
It talks about things like the denial response, this can't be happening, or even hysterical blindness, where your mind literally refuses to see a terrifying event, making you just flee.
And for highly trained people,
They might experience a kind of watching oneself phenomenon, or even feel out of body because their reactions have become so automatic through training.
so how do we build that mental preparedness? How do we conquer the adrenaline dump?
Visualization.
Yeah.
Mental simulation. The book really emphasizes this. Walking yourself through potential combat scenarios, keeping your radar up, anticipating trouble. The source says this can equal hard workouts in terms of preparing your mind.
It's not just daydreaming then. It's active mental training.
Exactly. It's about hardwiring responses, overriding those natural, unhelpful stress reactions, building a combat mind so you can execute trained actions automatically, like that old special forces saying, pick your enemy before he picks you.
So the mental game is just as crucial, maybe even more so, than the physical training.
Seems that way. Okay, let's shift to the hardware itself. Firearms. If you're considering a self-defense weapon, the book gives 7 critical factors to think about.
Yeah, it moves beyond just brand names or caliber debates to a really practical approach. What are those factors?
Okay, number 1, reliability. Obvious but critical. 2, comfort and fit to your hand, not just any hand. 3, stopping power. 4, concealability. 5, recoil, can you actually manage it? 6, your ability to unconsciously handle safeties and magazines. And 7, trigger pull.
It's a really solid checklist.
Yeah.
It's all about matching the tool to the individual and their specific situation, right? A powerful gun isn't the right gun if you can't control the recoil or work the safety under pressure.
Exactly. It touches on the stopping power debate, 9mm versus .40, .45, recoil and capacity versus maybe more stopping power. It even mentions newer rounds like the 5.7 that use speed and spin for tissue damage. Kinetic loads, they call them.
Interesting. And home defense.
Briefly mentions shotguns, 12 gauge usually, but cautions you to check if the load will go through drywall, which is a huge concern.
And the bottom line.
The bottom line from the book is, it's the skill that matters when reliability is the same. Expensive gear doesn't replace good training and knowing your own limits.
What's on that? Skill over gear.
Okay, basic but crucial. Safely unloading your pistol. The book highlights a right way and a wrong way.
Oh yeah. What's the common mistake?
Putting your hand over the ejection port as the round comes out. It can cause the round to fall back into the chamber and potentially fire due to spring tension.
Oof. Yeah, that's bad. So the right way.
Hand clear. Let the round just fall out. Then pull the slide back 3 or 4 times. Visually and physically check the chamber is empty. Make absolutely sure.
Makes sense. Thoroughness is key.
And then there's the concept of negligent discharge, or ND. The book is blunt. There is no such thing as an accidental discharge.
Meaning it's always human error.
Always. Improper handling, or maybe bad maintenance. It's never just the gun went off.
And the most common cause they identify.
It's apparently right after dry firing. You practice dry firing, then you load the weapon, and then you subconsciously go for one more dry fire pull, only this time the gun is loaded.
Muscle memory working against you. What's the fix?
Simple but brilliant. You have to say out loud and with authority to yourself, the gun is now loaded before you holster it.
Breaking the pattern with a conscious verbal cue. I like that.
Yeah. The book also briefly covers immediate actions for malfunctions. Tap and rack for semi-autos, maybe a second trigger pull, or manually rotating the cylinder for revolvers.
These seemingly basic points, they just underscore that need for absolute precision and mindfulness, don't they? Preventing NDs isn't just about rules, it's about lessons learned from real tragedies. Competence comes from disciplined practice, making safety truly second nature.
All right, let's talk about getting the gun into the fight. The draw stroke. This deep dive introduces the right angle draw stroke, calls it a modern, tactically superior method.
Okay, how does that differ from the traditional draw most people might picture?
Well, the traditional way is often taught as moving the gun in a sort of diagonal arc up to full extension. The problem is you're not really ready to fire until you're fully extended, and you might hit obstacles in front of you.
Right, so the right angle draw.
You come straight up out of the holster, thumb roughly in line with your pectoral muscle, then you rotate the muzzle towards the target.
So you can engage much sooner.
Exactly. You can fire effectively at any point during that extension. Even if an attacker is right on top of you, you can put a round into their abdomen from a compressed position. Plus, you're less likely to get fouled up by objects directly in front of you.
That makes a lot of sense for close quarters chaos. Yeah, it's a fundamental shift, really.
The book also mentions gun-ready positions. The takeaway isn't about specific named positions like low ready or sul. It's more about training yourself to instinctively move the weapon so it's not pointing at anyone unintentionally, based purely on the situation around you.
Situational awareness dictating weapon position. Got it.
But here's something that really jumped out at me. If there's one single piece of advice in this entire deep dive for increasing survivability in a gunfight, it's this: lateral movement.
Moving sideways, why is that so critical?
The source claims that just making a sidestep part of your draw stroke cuts your chance of being shot in half. Add cover while doing it. Your odds drop to just 20%.
Wow, cut in half just by stepping sideways. That's huge and counterintuitive, too.
Totally counterintuitive. Our instinct is usually to stand and fight or maybe flee straight back, not sideways.
That emphasis on lateral movement is profound. It forces you to consciously override that basic fight-or-flight urge. Instead of just standing there or running away predictably, you move smarter. You become a much harder target. It directly improves survival chances by disrupting the attacker's aim.
Okay, let's face a grim reality the book points out. Modern threats aren't always just one person. It mentions gangs, natural disasters, terrorism, cross-border hit squads. Point being, you're maybe just as likely to encounter more than one attacker.
A sobering thought. What's the core mindset needed for that?
Attitude first. Attitude, you will prevail. And practically. Always wear a Class 3 vest with rifle or trauma plates if it's legal for you. The book says the routine should be, first, put on your vest, second, to pick up your weapon. Vest first.
Makes sense. And tactics for multiple attackers.
It suggests switching from the standard Mozambique drill that's 2 to the body, 1 to the head, to a different rhythm, more like 1 good shot per thug, then repeat. Assess, shoot the next immediate threat, repeat.
That requires incredible mental discipline, doesn't it? Controlling your speed to ensure accuracy under that kind of pressure.
Immense discipline. And always, always use cover. Never let yourself get flanked. That's critical with multiple threats.
Absolutely. Okay, what about another common scenario? Low light conditions.
Right. The book notes the market is flooded with low-light toys, night vision, lasers, fancy flashlights, but it also says there's a real lack of good training classes for fighting in the dark.
Technology isn't a substitute for skill.
Exactly. And there's a specific caution about those super bright tactical flashlights. They can potentially cause permanent retina damage if you flash them directly into someone's fully dilated pupil.
Good to know. So what are the recommended low-light tactics that rely less on gadgets?
Key techniques include using your light intermittently, a quick flash, then move or fire immediately after. Don't just stand there with the light on, painting a target on yourself.
Use the light, then move. Makes sense.
Keep the light held away from your body if possible. Creates deception about your exact location.
Smart. Misdirection.
And here's a clever one. Use the attacker's own muzzle flash to your advantage.
How?
Their flash momentarily illuminates their position for you. Use that split second to locate them, adjust your aim, or move while you remain in darkness.
That's fascinating. It really shows how fundamental tactics and clear thinking can trump technology. Whether it's multiple attackers or low light, it keeps coming back to mindset, training, and smart movement. Using the chaos, not just reacting to it.
Absolutely. Okay, we've covered philosophy, verbal force, physiology, hardware. Now, how do you actually train for this reality? The book emphasizes a tiered approach, moving beyond just shooting at paper.
Right, getting more realistic as you progress. What are the levels?
3 main levels. First is static training. That's your basic range work, paper targets, focusing on marksmanship fundamentals. Second is dynamic training. This often involves video simulations, good for practicing decision-making under pressure shoot-no-shoot scenarios.
And a third level.
Force-on-force training. This is where you interact with live participants, using things like simunitions or airsoft. It's considered the highest level for evaluating real skill and performance.
So why is force on force so important? What does it actually achieve?
The book lists several reasons. Improving performance and safety, obviously. Training in realistic environments, not just a sterile range. Critically, it helps inoculate you against those stress effects we talked about, the adrenaline dump, tunnel vision.
Ah, stress inoculation. That makes sense. You experience it in training, so it's less debilitating in reality.
Exactly. It lets you evaluate your performance under pressure, correct bad habits, develop judgment skills. And the book adds it can actually be fun. Great for morale and a confidence builder.
Yeah, bridging that gap between theory and chaos. It's the only way to really test yourself and find weaknesses you'd never see on a flat range.
Okay, but with force on force comes huge safety considerations. This isn't just playing games. The book demands what it calls a zero-defect attitude towards safety, not just safe enough.
Why such an extreme standard? 0 defects.
Because, as the book points out, even a tiny error rate, say 0.01% over thousands of training drills, while the law of statistics means someone eventually gets hurt or killed. It's unacceptable.
Especially with a risk of live ammo getting mixed with training rounds.
That's the nightmare scenario. The absolute rule is real weapons should only be used on the range. Use dummy weapons or force-on-force technologies for tactical training, period.
So what specific safety protocols does it lay out for this kind of training?
It's incredibly stringent. First, you need a physically separate simulation area, only one way in or out. And everyone entering must be cleared. No live weapons allowed inside, ever.
A completely sterile zone.
Correct. Then you need a sanitizing chamber outside this area. This is where participants remove all real weapons, unload them, check them, and store them safely, often using a clearing barrel.
Okay, real guns secured outside. What about the training weapons?
They're stored separately in an arsenal, usually within the safe zone. And they're only distributed by designated instructors or safety officers. Participants don't just grab them.
Control is key.
And critical, color coding. Simulated weapons must be clearly marked, usually with 2 bright bands of colored tape, one on the pistol grip, one across the top of the barrel or slide.
So you can instantly tell it's not a real firearm.
Instantly. But, and this is important, all the normal firearm safety rules still apply to the training weapons. Treat them as if they were real.
Good point.
Oh,
And who enforces all this?
The safety officer. This role is paramount. They visually check and verbally confirm the training area is clear. They do physical checks, pat searches on participants entering the zone.
They have the final say.
Absolutely. The safety officer can stop the training, eject someone, override the instructor if there's a safety violation. Safety trumps everything.
That level of caution,
Yeah,
it's intense, but clearly necessary. Born from hard lessons, no doubt.
definitely. The book also details minimum protective gear for airsoft-based training, face-forming goggles for everyone, full face mask, neck, chest protection for role players, suggests groin protection, gloves, ear pro too.
It's about creating an environment where you can train realistically under stress without risking real-world injury due to a mistake. Because mistakes will happen if you don't pursue safety perfection relentlessly.
Right. So let's touch on a few specific drills the book mentions that bring these concepts together. First, close quarter shooting, CQS.
Ah, yes, the reality check drill.
Pretty much. It highlights the grim stat that most assaults happen within 5 feet. And guess what? That's also the range where most misses statistically occur. Why? People don't train for it, realistically.
Who CQS training focuses on?
Building muscle memory for point shooting, no time for sights when someone's right in your face, and critically, integrating combatives.
Like what?
Shove and shoot techniques, using an elbow to create space, deflecting attacks so you can even access your weapon. The book even mentions going to the ground as a potential tactical option, not just something to avoid.
It really connects back to that idea that fine marksmanship alone isn't enough up close. You need integrated skills, understanding stress effects.
Exactly. Then there's a challenging one, partner rescue.
The scenario where a loved one is grappling with an attacker.
Yeah, the incredibly difficult decision of taking a shot when your partner is right there. The book suggests aiming for the pelvis in that specific situation to minimize the risk of the bullet passing through the attacker and hitting your partner.
A very specific, high-stakes technique.
Wow.
Requires immense skill and judgment.
For sure. And finally, the book highlights lane training, using setups to simulate realistic scenarios, carjackings, home invasions.
And after every training evolution.
Crucially, after action reviews, ARs. These aren't just casual chats, they're structured debriefs.
What's the goal of the AR?
To ask tough questions, analyze the decisions made, good and bad, explore mistakes, and use all that to refine what the book calls battle drills.
Battle is a being.
Those collective actions or even individual responses that need to be executed instantly, correctly, without conscious thought under pressure. The AAR process ensures every training session, every mistake becomes a lesson learned and helps hardwire those effective responses.
Continuous improvement through structured feedback. Yeah. Essential for building that proactive, prepared mindset.
So wrapping this all up, we've covered a ton of ground today. From the surprising power of verbal force, the deep science of how your body reacts under fire, right through to specialized training, hardcore safety protocols, even picking the right gear.
It really underscores that being truly well-informed in self-defense, it's about so much more than just the mechanics of shooting, isn't it? Mindset, psychology, understanding the legal realities, the physiological limits. This deep dive shows it's a truly multi-layered skill. Mental fortitude and strategy are just as vital, maybe more so, than just physical ability.
Yeah, this wasn't just a gun talk. It was about empowering yourself with knowledge, understanding awareness, preparation, control, especially when the stakes are literally life and death. And you've learned some counterintuitive things, that not fighting fair, using that extreme verbal force, can actually be the most humane, most effective way to survive sometimes. So, here's a final thought to take away. As you go about your day to day, maybe notice those subtle acts of negotiation you're constantly doing without thinking about it. And consider, how might a deeper understanding of verbal force, even just the principles behind it, empower you in completely unexpected parts of your life?
Hmm. Interesting question to ponder.
We really hope this deep dive gave you plenty to think about, some new perspectives to explore. Until next time, stay curious and keep digging deep.